We begin with Dr. Cornel West. He is a professor of religion as well as the director of Afro-American Studies at Princeton. He's also known as a brilliant social critic with insights into topics as diverse as racism and popular culture. His latest book, which is being published on the anniversary of the LA riots, is called Race Matters, and I'm very pleased to have him back. Welcome.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Good to see you. Tell me, these are a series of essays that you have written. But if there is an essence here about race in America today, what is it?
We see the triumph of the human spirit as it struggles against adversity. And in many ways, that's a paradigm of the black condition in America since we first arrived. A very tragic but dignified struggle against adversity, struggle against overwhelming circumstances, and yet still able to hone out some stone of hope, and that's what that book is about. It's about hope.
What's the hope?
Well, the hope is primarily based on the small victories in terms of the black love, black care, black joy that serves as a basis of loving others and allowing the possibilities of persons coming together to change and transform prevailing circumstances.
This second trial of Rodney King, this trial in which the prosecution has evidently done a better job than it did in the first time. Do you fear the consequences because no one knows what a jury's going to do this time?
Well, it's hard to say, though, Charlie, though I must say that the distinction between what some persons would call a more visible riot, rebellion, or upheaval, as opposed to the quiet riot, which is occurring this very moment in South Central, occurring this very moment in Harlem here in New York. It's occurring this very moment in South Central and East LA. It's occurring in Appalachia. That is to say, the hurt, the misery, the suffering. And oftentimes we act as if that is not already in place, and it is. The tears are actually already flowing, as it were. So that the distinction between a quiet riot, which is occurring at this very moment, and a more visible rebellion or riot or upheaval is, for me, an important distinction, but it's a distinction that ought not to lead us to overlook the degree to which the conditions are still the same.
Why do you think that white America was startled by the rage in L.A.?
I think partly because we've lived through a kind of ice age under Reagan and Bush. And what I mean by that is it has rendered so much of black and brown, but especially black social misery invisible. And by rendering that social misery invisible, persons are surprised as they have fallen asleep in their own kind of complacency. And to see the rage and fury and the anger articulated was a wake-up call to the degree to which persons had in fact slumbered and fallen into a complacency. And began to think that maybe we had reached a kind of rough justice in this country, and we know that's certainly not the case.
You mentioned anything that African-American conservatives say resonate with you at all? Those who want to see black America do well by grabbing a piece of the American dream and making capitalism work for them? Does anything there that you can say?
You see, black conservatives, they get a lot of mileage out of a notion that all black freedom fighters have affirmed, which is the notion of black self-help, black self-development. Right. And no one would be against black self-help.
Malcolm X was for that, wasn't he? Malcolm X was much more of that than he was.
Elijah Muhammad, right down the line.
But Malcolm specifically, because he's such a hero to so many African Americans, clearly was articulating something like that. I mean, you could even argue, I guess some might, that he was a forerunner of, notwithstanding some of the elements of it.
Right, but I mean, but what I think Brother Malcolm understood and the black conservatives do not is that you cannot overlook the degree to which white supremacy shapes and molds the circumstances and conditions under which black self-help and black self-development can take place. And I would add male supremacy, I would add economic inequality. Right. But certainly when it comes to emphasizing black self-help, and conservatives often think they have a monopoly on such a notion, and they're wrong.
What's your criticism of liberals? in America and in their analysis of race in America?
Well, I think the problem often is that liberals at times tend to be spineless milquetoast, which is to say that they're not
paternalistic.
The degree to which they act on their convictions is often quite weak, and that they refuse to acknowledge the degree to which America remains so deeply shaped by corporate elites and bank elites in this country. That liberals think that somehow the distribution of wealth in place can provide the background conditions for inclusion of others, so that the pie would get bigger, so that economic growth by means of corporate priority can remain in place. And I think liberals are at times allies, at times they're unreliable allies, so I don't want to just whitewash them, as it were. But you've got to proceed quite cautiously with liberals.
The issue is an unfettered market economy.
Oh yes, but we know the market's not unfettered.
Okay.
Right. We know the corporate America will get subsidies and free equipment and free technology and so forth. So if we're going to talk about public provisions for certain spheres of our society, certainly we have to talk about the cozy relationships between various corporate elites and the political elites.
You sound like Ross Perot there.
Well, I mean, Ross has a point, though he gives it a more conservative populist twist. Yeah. But he certainly has a point in terms of the lobbyists who are hired primarily by corporations to push through policies that are efficacious for their own interests. But let me say this, though, Charlie, that you are absolutely right in terms of my not being in step with most of the world.
Right.
Because when I look at Bosnia, when I look at India, when I look at South Africa, when I look at Haiti, when I look at Chile, I see human suffering that is changeable and alterable.
Well, then let's take that, though.
And I think that the fight against such injustice is an honorable one and a self-critical and humble.
Okay, but you'd also do you think? Are you pessimistic about the future?
No.
You're optimistic?
No.
Where are you?
I'm full of hope.
Full of hope, okay.
Against the grain.
And faith.
And faith, in spite of sensibility, as it were. The evidence points to sliding down a slippery slope of chaos, anarchy.
What's the politics of conversion?
The politics of conversion is an attempt to rechannel powers and energies of ordinary people so that they believe they can make a difference, and if they come together, they can expand the scope of democracy.
And what brings them together?
What will bring them together will be, 1, new leadership, 2, new belief in themselves, and 3, new historical conjunctures, new moments that provide new possibilities which are unpredictable, which as we turn around the corner when we turn around the corner, we see things that we could not have imagined.